My name is Josh. I'm the test kitchen director here at Food 52. Today we're going to be talking about knife care, how to maintain a sharp knife. We use this 5-2 knife in the kitchen literally every day, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. We're going to show a few tips, a few tricks, how to keep your knife extremely sharp. The first tool that you have at your disposal to keep your knife well maintained is a steel. This is not going to literally sharpen your knife, it's going to realign the knife. The edge of that knife is going to be sort of splayed in different directions, microscopically, if you can imagine. What the honing steel does, and there's a few different ways you can do it, it realigns those teeth. If the teeth are slightly out of whack, it brings them back to a point. If you're working with like a fish, let's say, and you want to get a perfect fillet out of a whole fish, it's a good idea to use the honing steel, maybe 6 or 8 swipes on the steel, realign your blade, you're going to have a smoother, easier time. The important thing with the honing steel, you need to maintain the same angle with the blade of the knife against the steel the whole way across. I'm keeping a straight wrist. I've set my angle of the knife against the steel, and I'm not deviating from that angle. If you have a loose wrist and you sort of swipe awkwardly, you're not going to hone your blade, you're going to make it more out of whack. Choose an angle and stick with it. You're just sliding the blade against the steel. Some people also feel comfortable holding the steel like this, and you can swipe this way. However you feel comfortable. Take your thumb, very, very lightly, run it over the top of this blade. If it's sharp, you can feel the knife against the ridges of your thumb. If it's dull, you're not going to have that same sensation. The way to really maintain your knife over the long haul is to use a whetstone. Different whetstones have different number grades. The grade corresponds to how fine or rough the stone is going to be. The lower the number, the rougher the stone. The higher the number, the sort of more fine and smooth the stone is. For most home cooks, I really recommend a 2-sided stone like this. I think it's really nice. You have a rougher side and you have a finer side. If you have a knife that you're comfortable using, it started off very sharp and it got a little bit dull, you want to maintain that with a stone that's about 1,000 grade, anything between 1,000 and 2,000. It's rough enough that it's going to help you set a new edge on your knife, keep it really sharp, but it's not so rough that it's going to wear away the knife in a dramatic way. With this 5-2 knife, we're not creating a brand new edge, we're maintaining a sharp edge that got a little bit dull. So the 1,000 to 2,000 range of stone is great for that. And then after I've done a few passes, I can finish it on the 8,000 side. Anything between 5,000 and 8,000 is great for sort of like polishing, finishing touches, that sort of thing. There's 2 types of stones generally. There's water stones and oil stones. Today we're going to be working with a water stone. I think typically that's what home cooks choose to work with. It's easier to maintain. For a water stone to work effectively, it needs to soak for at least 20 to 30 minutes, or you can soak it overnight and then use it the following day. I always sort of sprinkle a little bit of water back on the stone just to get started. It doesn't need to be soaking wet, but it shouldn't be dry. Once you've done this a few times, you sort of get a feel for how wet your particular stone should be while you're working. I think the most important thing sharpening your knife on a stone, again, is to choose an angle and stick with it. I like to imagine, they say like the width of like 3 pennies, I'd say, between the back of the knife and the stone. And I'm going to maintain that angle the whole time that I'm rubbing the knife against the stone. Some people will run the entire length of the blade across the stone while they're sharpening. That's one method. The way that I was taught, the way that I prefer to do it, is to think of the knife in segments. I'll do the bottom segment of the knife, and I'll count 10 times up and back. I'll switch to the next segment. I'll count 10 times up and back. And I'll keep going segment by segment through the entire blade of the knife until I get to the tip. 10 times, 10 times, 10 times each segment of the knife, and I'll flip it to the other side and I'll repeat the same way. In terms of the pressure that you're applying to the stone while you're rubbing against it, you shouldn't be pressing hard in any way. You're not scraping the knife against the stone by any means. You're sort of gently rubbing the knife along the top of the stone, and naturally the stone is going to create friction against the knife, and it's going to do a subtle thing helping create the edge. You don't need to force this. Just lightly going up and down is enough. As you continue to work, you're going to see sort of a paste begin to form between the knife and the stone. That paste is a good sign. It means that the whetstone is working, and that combination of water, grit, and steel is what's sharpening your knife. So how do you test is the knife sharp or not? That thumb test I mentioned, I can feel the top of the blade now sort of prickling against every little nook and cranny of my thumbprint here in a different way than before we used the whetstone. There's one other important thing to test for though. Let's say you put more pressure on one side than the other side, or accidentally you lost count and you did like 20 up and downs on one side but only 10 up and downs on the other side. Take your thumb and sort of flick upward from the middle of the blade up toward the tip. You shouldn't feel the blade scratching against your thumb in a significant way. If you do feel the blade scratching against your thumb, it means that you've put too much pressure on one side of the blade and not enough on the other side. So if you feel the blade arcing toward your thumb, remember that spot where you found it and do a few up and downs just in that spot, and that should balance out the blade. Now we're looking for hardly any pressure. It should slice this tomato nice and easy. That's really nice. This is effortless tomato slicing here, which is what you want. We talked about how to sharpen the knife. Next, we're going to talk about how to maintain it. Wash your knife in the sink. These are safe to put in the dishwasher, but we don't recommend it. To take care of your knife, to really care for it, hand wash it, hand dry it, and then store it somewhere responsible. We recommend a magnetic knife block. There's no danger of them getting nicked or bonked or bent or anything like that. You can also use a wooden knife block, like an insert in a cabinet or drawer works really well. Don't just throw your knife in a drawer. It's gonna get knocked around, it's gonna get bent. Take care of this thing. One last feature of these 5-2 knives that I really like, these little brass rivets. They develop a natural patina over time, a little bit of like a rustic look. That's fine, it's natural. If you want to clean it up though and keep it looking fresh, you can use Barkeeper's Friend, a rag, give it a little polish, keep it looking shiny and new. Those are all my tips. Enjoy your 5-2 knife, take good care of it. I'll see you next time.